Check, check, 1, 2. Check, check, 1, 2. I hope that came through. And let me get all this going, everybody. I hope you can hear me. Uno momento. 1 second, and we will have it up. YouTube was giving me a little bit of issues with my launchings. I hope that intro came through. Come on now. I think we're here. What's up, Alicia? How are you? I forgot to put my watch on. You want to know what? Before we go to Applebee's, Alicia, I'm going to put a watch on. Really nice watch. We're going to sit at a really nice high top table. I want to thank everybody for coming by. I want to thank Janessa Farrell for the incredibly generous preamble there. And I feel naked without the watch. I'm sorry. I have to put it on. So many problems. They set up this like stream through your encoder, meaning OBS, but you also have to like click on YouTube's thing, so like you can't do it in sync, so like it always starts a little bit late. Alicia Kingston, do I have you as a mod? Yeah, feel free. But yeah, Applebee's, yeah. I see some people didn't like that, Alicia, when I was on the stream yesterday, and I was like, listen, ladies, I'm perfectly capable of providing a fine meal at Applebee's. No, I was a host at Applebee's, and that's where I waited tables first at Ruby Tuesdays because I left Applebee's and went back. But yeah, no, that's like that youthful moment. The Elite, haven't the newest one yet. I'm assuming you seen. But loving the series so far. I think it's on a good trajectory. Yes, absolutely. In Janessa, give a $20 super chat, you are everybody. We will answer any questions you have, but this is more of a broad just look at the series in general, because I feel like this is a series that has gone, for the most part, not unknown, but it hasn't got the attention it deserves. So there's not going to be too many spoilers. I'm going to talk about the trajectory of the alternate timeline. I'm going to talk about a few YouTube creators that I'm not connected with at all, and actually one of them, not even a huge fan of with their Westworld work, but I stepping into the producer role as I found that like their content, once you get that competition out of you can find joy in it. So I'll link them as well, because I found their videos quite helpful for all mankind. I keep putting the up in there. But yeah, no, I think it's a really fun series, and I'm going to do hold on, let me make sure I got my OBS set up. I kind of did this on the fly because I kind of like to just share the joy of the fandom family. And Janessa, yeah, absolutely. Like, thank you so much. Like, that's like the whole point, is just kind of share what we like and what I think you guys will like, because I'm in the midst of working on my own Expanse season 1. It's a redo. I already have one video on like the cultures and in the kind of all of the world aspects, the world building of it, and what's really great about it. And then I had to go back because it had been so long, and I want to do that series like ample service, right? Like I want to do right by it. I want to do right by you guys. So like I'm working on that, and I see this as like almost a preamble to that. I see this as like the setup for that type of situation. So we'll talk a little bit about the space race. We'll talk a little bit about why I think this series is so fantastic. And also the format, the medium, meaning the medium is the message, something I speak about quite often with storytelling. It's ignorant to ignore it. In the way in which we receive the story and we consume this story is very much so applicable. Trust me. And I am waiting. I waited until Friday morning, to watch, not because I had the willpower, because I don't, but to watch episode 4, right? Pathfinder, which I found extremely thrilling. And now I did catch up. Let's just like put the cards on the table. I didn't watch any of this until about 3 weeks ago, but this was Apple TV's kind of launching pad, right? Like this was their machine. This was what they were really presenting to everybody. This has Joel Kinnaman in it, that's the biggest name. And I do have some exciting news about possible, believe it or not, cast interviews. I saw a channel with less subscribers than I. Not saying they're lesser or anything, but I saw somebody within my range and they had interviews with them. I reached out to them. They gave me the contact. I gave my social analytics to Apple TV today, and it looks like I could get one or two before episode 8 airs, and I'm really got my fingers crossed. But I would be honest with you guys, I'd rather have the screeners, and that's what I'm pushing for too, meaning the screeners that every person that applied for them got for this series. You get 8 episodes. Now there's an embargo, you can't like spill the beans on it, but there would be an embargo for it. But I would really like that, just so I could like kind of like set up videos and maybe God forbid, do a scripted video for you guys, right? Like, and actually have something that is like cohesive and all that. But no, I've been loving it. So let's see who's here. So we got Fandom D Saint. Oh man. Really, really always a big fan of you. No matter how many bad jokes I make, you keep showing up. I'm doing the Expanse rewatch as well. We need the chat, bruv. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I'm looking for collaborations on the Expanse because I want to do due service to it. But let's stick For All Mankind. So we have the Elite in the chat that says, I haven't watched the newest one yet. I'm assuming you mean the newest episode, which would be Pathfinder. But you've been with it so far. So I did a binge of season 1, as I said, because this was very much so the Apple TV like launching pad, right? Like this was their machine. This is what they were going with. Let's switch over here and see what we're working with. Okay. So For All Mankind, what we're dealing with is an alternate timeline in which the Soviets has beat us to the space race, which is very intriguing because I love alternate history and The Man in the High Castle. I'm not trying to like, shit on anything, but kind of dropped the ball in my opinion. Not too thrilled with it. But I'm really loving the balance between character and plot driven story here. And I know it's always a cliche, but I kind of feel like they're always walking a thin line with this series, to be fair, meaning I think that they definitely are always on the verge of us just being disenfranchised with like the actual characters, and then they jump back at the right moment, and they do a lot of time jumps, not only in between seasons but sometimes in between episodes. But I think they make it work. It's almost like that outsider's view in, right? And we get to know the characters as they go. But what we're dealing with in broad strokes here, because I'm trying to keep this casual, is a situation in which we're dealing with the Soviet in the US space race, right? So what we have is a plethora of German scientists, in which Project Paperclip, we, obtained a few Nazi scientists that some, as we see throughout the series, in real life, when they went to trial or whatever, when they're under scrutiny and it goes, that we're working against their will, we'll never know. I'm not speaking to the morality of any of this. But the point is, what would have happened if we would have lost the first man on the moon? And it's very interesting because the main point I want to get across, and what I find so intriguing about this series, it's almost a philosophical perspective of what happens, like we talk about Game of Thrones a lot on this channel and all the channels I'm involved with, about good intentions not always having like good outcomes, right? Well, also bad intentions can have good outcomes. The progression and the progressive view of female, astronauts and African American ladies going into space. We are not going to have our first, I believe it's 2024 or 2025, first female astronaut, much less one of a diverse race going up into the space station until 2024-25. This happens much more quickly in the timeline, hypothetically, in which we lose the space race. Because we have to look at this. This was Kennedy in the first place putting us, saying, listen, the Soviets are Neanderthals. They're a bunch of cavemen. We're going to do it right, and we're going to get everybody there. And then we won, and then we quit. So what would happen if we lost? Now, there's been a lot of papers published, and I'm going to link some of them because it's very much so interesting, that we actually had plans. The Soviets had plans to do, because what happens in this series specifically, and this isn't that out of line with reality, it's not a race for space, but it's a race for the base, meaning a base on the moon, in which they call Jamestown in the first series, meaning instead of 2007 when we really discovered water on the moon, which means you can refuel, means you can have life, means you could use that as a jumping point and get the Mars, you know what I mean, the road through Mars and all that. It could happen a lot more quickly if we actually would have lost, because for some reason everybody just stopped going to the moon when we did it. You know, like it was like, okay, we proved our point, we did it. But you know, the arrogance of the United States, and maybe not the best intentions, because the Soviets, and trust me, this is all like through rose colored glasses, and I'm not like really projecting for one or the other, or like, you know, like advocating for one or the other. But you know, the Soviets actually in World War II, now they had to buy their own tanks, had quite a few female tank drivers and stuff like that. They did actually have cosmonauts, as they call them, that were female up in orbit before we did, and we still have not landed a female on the moon. So what I'm getting at is that sometimes, and this is what this series is really touching on in a lot of ways, other than the very interesting, you know, concept of what happens when we don't get to the moon first, meaning that we get to Mars maybe 20 years earlier, because that's like that weird, you know, paradox there, because it's like, oh no, we want it, so now we're good, right? We don't need it. No. We're petty. So we need the race for the base. What does the base do? It needs to look for water. It needs to do this. Now, what are the Soviets doing? They're sending women into space. We'll send a woman into space. What are they doing? They send a woman. We'll send an African-American woman. Now, is that the best like motivation for diversity and all that? No, it's not. But also, it does actually, and just as good intentions don't always have good results. You know, the bad motivations, you know, meaning like pretty much just like they're shilling. It's a shtick. It's a gimmick, right? And we have every reason to believe this, because there are reports within NASA of us actually planning these things if we lose, to send a woman into space. Like, we're only progressive if we're forced to. So it's not only through noble means, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things in recent history of sexual harassment. I don't want to get into it, but horrible people within Hollywood, right? That now we have a actually more progressive, hopefully we're getting there, system up for sexual harassment, all that. I'm not going to name names. All I'm saying is please open up your eyes to it. And this is a fantastic alternate history situation in which I think they handle perfectly in this situation, in which you have a very progressive space program in technological ways, but both technological and cultural ways, right? Because we see them not only sending women into space, and it's a shtick, and it's a gimmick, and that's not cool. I'm not saying that's cool, but also, it does prove a point once they get up there and they can do the job just as well. I mean, you know, it's not the best of, you know, launching pads, all puns intended, but it works out. And you can't always get things through ethical ways. So the women prove themselves. I think they do a wonderful job in this series of portraying the weakness of everybody, meaning just like the emotional strain in which it takes to be a test pilot, both female and male, to go through this day in, day out of I might explode, trying to just literally get to something that's kind of a gimmick, but then it turns into more and it progresses to more. And there's a lot of actual evidence that proves that we would actually be at Mars, like in the 80s, per se, adverse to what we're at now. Like right now, we're looking at the first woman on the moon from the United States in 2024. We didn't find water until 2007. And it's all because we didn't have anything to prove. Because, you know, we put our big old American, you know what, on the moon first, and we're there. We did it. But they didn't really do anything, right? So again, this idea of intentions are moot. You know, it's a moot point. Good or bad. You know what I mean? Do I wish everybody had like good intentions and good things came up? Of course. I'd like to Ned Stark it all day. But we all see all that head chops. So let's look at the comments here. Each season should cover a decade. Can't wait to see how the show is going to look at when we get to the 90s, 2020. Wait, a woman, Phantom Desane has not been to the moon yet. That's definitely not for him. I believe the first mission is going to be in 2024. And now look at what has caused that. What has caused NASA to re-engage into a, like, you know, a mission to Mars per se, and then the moon, and looking to set up a base is global warming, a catastrophe, right? So again, not the best like Like, it's like, oh, we fucked up, we fucked this planet up, so we'll go there now. So we could have maybe, hypothetically, speaking, we could have actually got there and did something of meaning, because we just went there and planted a flag. We pretty much went and peed on our territory and did nothing with it. You know what I mean? And that's not all that great. But again, it's all in hindsight, so I'm not going to be all that judgmental, because the Soviets aren't perfect either. But this definitely deals with a Cold War atmosphere that's very, very interesting. And another thing to take note of is, when we're looking at, let's see, American acts, like, did you? Yeah, it gets a little bit ridiculous. But what I really like about the series is that they touch on real world events. Now, I always love a great alternate history, because in this history, now think about it, the Soviets don't actually invade Afghanistan if they land on in this. I'm not saying that's for sure, but they keep their funds, because we are Americans, and like Alicia, you've said so brilliantly, I won't repeat your verbiage, but you've said it quite well. I love you for it. Have done what we've done. We get there and we lay it down and we say it's ours. They actually don't invade Afghanistan. And you have a hypothetical, in which Osama bin Laden doesn't become what he does. Because the Russians in this actual series, we're just talking, like hypotheticals in the real world, but in this actual series, it's plainly stated that they divert the funds for an Afghanistan invasion to their cosmonaut program, whatever their NASA is. So it's very interesting, right? Because they got skin in that game, so they don't go and invade Afghanistan and create, quite possibly, what created 9/11, right? So there's all these spidering effects that are very fascinating, and we see a lot of politicking as well throughout this series. And I think there's a very, very delicate balance in this series of, like I said, plot driven as well as character driven. Because we see, I don't know if any of you guys have, I'm not a military person, but I know a lot of military people. I have friends that are in the military. I know females that, I've worked with that are, they call them Army or Air Force wives. You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is, but there's this sense of community that I think the series has really accurately depicted, especially since I've been in North Carolina. I've seen this a lot, and it's got its pros, it's got its cons, but there's this real human aspect to it. And there is a great cast of characters that I believe, except for Joel Kinnaman, let me pull it up. I think that, not that much exposure on him, but I think brilliantly casted, and really showing that sense of community of what it would take to be one of these astronaut wives in this, whole, almost den mother mentality that some of them had to deal with. And also the idea of your husband could go away at any moment and die. And then we deal with the flip of the dynamic because of the flip of the progression. The progressive ventures in which they take, meaning then we see a few of the astronauts have their wives that are also pilots go in quicker. So you see that flip of the dynamic, see how the male deals with that situation. We see a hippie that likes to smoke a little weed and chill out with the Air Force moms, right? And then the vice versa. I think that there is a few things that feel like they could have been pushed upon us quite harshly, in my opinion, in this series, that come off quite well and brilliantly. I find it to be a very comforting as well as realistic, meaning it's a good series to watch, because it's not just all fun and games, but they do address some issues with these parallels and these issues within toxic masculinity and all of these man-driven ambitions and all that. But also it's not too preachy at all, because there's women that are great, and then there's women that mess up. There are men that are great, and there's men that mess up, because we're all just, remember, for all mankind, which, probably could be changed. I don't know why I just said that, but that's the name of it. But yeah, it's all of us. So yeah, I really enjoy it, and I find it to be a very, very interesting series. And one thing that I wanted to show you guys was From Earth to the Moon. If you guys are very interested in this series, now when you see people like Deke, because what we have is an alternate timeline. So Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Tom, I want to say Holland, but it's not, Tom Collins, are the first astronauts that land in our timeline, right? Okay, so if you want to look at a documentary that really kind of depicts the whole good old boy system, it's this 1998. Let's go to it. From Earth to the Moon. Ironically, narrated by Tom Hanks, from Apollo 13. But you'll see your Deke. You'll see, Deke Sladen. This is a character that is played in the series, and he is somebody that had a medical issue that might have been it's I won't do spoilers, but this guy was like a very, very prominent test pilot that did not end up being able to go on his Apollo flight because of some medical issue. In the series, he is for the first season the NASA head. He's pretty much I think they call it the captain, but he's the head of NASA. He's the one that assigns the pilots to their flight. So if you want to get a good idea, and this has some really brilliant actors. It says Bryan Cranston plays Buzz Aldrin. And this has Steve Zahn plays a character. There's some really good names in this series, and it's 1998. So like I always say, like about content creation, that what we should do is give you the most joy out of these series, meaning like, okay, we squeeze the most juice out of them. So like that's something that you guys should go look into for All of Mankind. And there's actually a documentary called the same thing, but From Earth to the Moon, let me link this really quick, is something that I'd like you guys to look into, because I found it to be quite satisfying to watch it having a base knowledge already, right, of like who these people were. And then you see the deviation of what happens to them. Like, unfortunately, I'm trying to stay spoiler free. I'm sorry, guys, but I'm just really loving this series. And I think that like anything that you can get more knowledge out of, or any like type of speculatory consumerism, meaning like, you can look at this alternate timeline and be like, oh man, because you have weird stuff too. You have the splintering off of presidents. You have Chadwick doesn't happen, if you've ever seen that movie, or know of the actual event with Teddy Kennedy doesn't happen, and that has nothing to do with it. The Pope dies in the assassination of 1981. Ronald Reagan is in 74. I believe, which would be a full term before. So you have Nixon go out and he gets actually pardoned by Teddy and all this. So you have all this splintering off. Lenin lives, like, you know what I mean? Like, so like I love alternate history like that, where they inject it and they do a beautiful job of it. I want to go Tom Holland. Yeah, Spider-Man was there. But no, I think that it's interesting because we have to look at like what causes progress. Is it the need for the actual like look at it now. Look at Elon Musk just straight shooting rockets up in the sky, and somehow 2 weekends ago that was a success, or he claimed it was. And said, hey, we did it, even though it blew up. It's a privatization of the actual space program. But when we look at progress, we look at NASA and we think, oh, they're always reaching for the stars, all these cliches, they're always doing this. But it's a big gimmick too. Like, it's a big pissing contest. It's a look who's is bigger contest. You know what I mean? So like, what happens when we lose it? And yes, then you get women that get more opportunities. And is that done with good intention? No. But it is the outcome. So like, that's for you guys to decide. And I really find that to be fascinating. I think this happens in society more than we'd like to think. And sometimes it takes that big disaster or this big, calamity of sorts for, people to be pushed in a certain direction or so forth. And it's like, it's very interesting to think about, what if we would not have had the first person on the moon? Because, that's where you get all these conspiracy theories about, they found out that there's aliens up there. No, this is like, no, dude, it's because they had a dick measuring competition. Like, quite literally. Like, I mean, I know it's based as hell that I'm saying it, but it's kind of true, and then they didn't find it necessary to fund it anymore because the Soviets then got distracted with Afghanistan. So what would have happened if we would have lost? It might have been better for all of mankind, in my opinion. But there's a lot of hypotheticals out there, and there are articles written, and there are disclosed documents about, since I've been looking into the series. I've only been watching it for 2 weeks, but I'm fucking loving it. Like, now I can't wait for Fridays, which is a great situation. WandaVision, great. Loved it. Awesome. All right. But for All Mankind, I'm fucking loving it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm really, like, I'm waking up to watch it. Like, I'm gonna get up at like 3:00 so I can catch it and get it. Like, it's one of those series for me, and I think that's something to be shared and something to be acknowledged. And they have a lot of talent on this cast. And I think there's a lot to be said for the alternate history in which you're depicting. And there's a lot to be said for the general cultural and sociological, behaviorals in which they're depicting within this show as well. Because it's like, oh, we always think that good intentions, like we always say with A Song of Ice and Fire, I can't say it enough, don't always lead to good outcomes. Well, sometimes it takes you to lose to, push you further. And we maybe could have been on Mars already, right? We could have did this. And this isn't like this like penalty or, like ultimate statement. Like, for sure, obviously, I'm not going to make some statement like that. I have no clue what I'm talking about when it comes to that type of science and aeronautics and all that. But I find it to be fascinating to think of the motivations, because I do know a lot about motivations of corporations, countries, and people. And I've studied them, and I tend to think that people mostly just want to look good. And the worst thing that people usually have in their minds, meaning their biggest fear, is not like literally people fear being wrong worse than they fear anything. If you bet the world's going to be blown up, you're not all that upset if it gets blown up by the person you said would, and you can tell your friend they'll fuck off. You know what I mean? So I didn't want to get too much into it. I just want to bring this series to the forefront. I know we have some people, and I'm going to take a look at the chat right here to see what you guys are thinking about it. I highly recommend it. I think this was Apple TV's vehicle. This was really what they were pitching, and it did get me with the Joel Kinnaman. I think he's a good actor. But I did not get it until I got my new iPad, and they gave me a free 1-year subscription. To be fair, I did not actually buy in. I was like, well, that looks good, but that's another subscription that I can't afford because I've got a bazillion of them, right? So let's see what you guys think. Let's look with all my rambling. Okay, yes, I know. So we got South London reseller. All right, if anybody's looking for real estate in South London, which I am, we'll pay Robert from Indie Geek a visit. Each season should cover a decade. So we went over that. So yeah, I'm interested in that as well, the Elite, because what we're dealing with right now is the 80s. So then we deal with the 90s, but in technology and focus, more so focus, right? And what we also see that technology splinter off to electric cars in the 80s, far before. Let's remember that the first electric car was before the first combustion. You know what I mean? The first gasoline, car that needed gasoline to run, and so forth. So, these are always like technologies in which we were aware of, but did we back them? Why would we back them? Usually, again, good intentions. And I hate to say it, it's like Harvey Weinstein. And I promised somebody to use, I ran this metaphor by some people. I go, look at how much we have actually progressed in sexual harassment and actually addressing the social issues and what's called a social contract, meaning what's acceptable in business life, especially within the arts and Hollywood. I'm not saying, trust me. And they said, don't use this example. I hate Harvey Weinstein. I hope the worst happens to him and nothing but the worst. And I hope. But that case, single-handedly, has progressed, right? This movement, it has gave us change in awareness. Now, it's not great the way it came upon. This is what I'm driving at. It's not always with good intentions or by good means in which we do it. Unfortunately, a lot of times it takes a fucking bullet to the head to realize you love your head so much. So it's something like but yeah, I went back on that promise. But I think it is relevant with these days. You have a lot of people in corporate HR and so forth that will speak to the fact that, sexual harassment and the way in which you conduct yourself within any industry, any corporation, anything has to be now reevaluated. And it's not great what happened. I'm not happy for it. But things can happen out of that are positive. Because why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we fix things? So it kind of sounds weird to say, but this is what happens if we don't get somewhere first. This is what happens if we lose a war. This is what happens. There's always this alternative way of looking at things in which, after you win, you got nothing but a celebration. But after you what is the saying? You learn more from a loss than you do from a win. Now, that is not to be applied to the people that lose personally in these situations. But if you're looking at a macro situation, unfortunately, it does take these egregious acts and these big losses, take down morale and push technology and push things that are all for like this like whole like again, NASA, we didn't get the first man on the moon, but we'll be the first with the base. The space base is the new one. Oh, we'll be the first to find water. Now we're gonna get the Mars, right? Like that dick measuring competition can become our escape pod from the country and world in which we're fucking overheating like crazy. Sooner than later. Maybe that would have been better because again, we are about 20 years behind the timeline in which this hypothetically happened. So let's see if I've got him murdered for any of the hypotheticals that I've used there. Let's see. Which would lead? Okay. So black women. Yeah, being a NASA program. So yeah, because okay, think about it, Alicia. So like, Russia put a female cosmonaut actually in our timeline in space, right? So like, that's where I get it gets into like this whole like nitty gritty, and it's not pretty, right? It's like, well, they put the first woman in space, so let's see who will be the first female captain. That's what we're dealing with right now. And then if they do that, oh, the first person of color, because we're such an advanced nation that any minority, and I'm not saying that's my view, but that would be the view as a whole at this time in the 60s and 70s, that you would prove your relevance and your worth within the world by taking a group that is unjustly subjugated, right? Like unjustly looked down upon, and say, we'll have them come up. So again, it's like these devious means in which we could achieve this progressive agenda. And it's not great, and it's not really very promising for mankind in general, but it is very interesting. And I think it's so interesting that we deal with homosexuality within this series, and I think it's dealt with fairly well, and I think it's dealt with in a realistic way that people like take measures to protect themselves, but also take measures to improve things. And I think that that is what you can do, because everything you got to take your wins where you can get them, and you can't just like say, hey, everybody should be good. I mean, fuck, I wish, you know what I mean? I'm with you, but that's not really what happens. So, get us away for big protection. So listen, what do you think of Tracy character becomes such a superstar? I think it's interesting that the cultural ramifications of the space program is so relevant in the show as well. Absolutely. So 2 not so rad dads on YouTube. I think this is Axel. This is a brilliant point. So Tracy is a character that was once astronaut's wife, right? But she was a pilot. So now she gets the introduction. These are called Nixons, gals with the series. Peepers. I'm going to give him his praise. This guy has done a great job within this series of covering the show. He will go through what has been, like happening in our timeline and their timeline. So Nixon's gals, which again, pretty misogynistic, right? We're not claiming it's all above the line, but it is what it is. You can take what you can take. And yeah, I think that it's very interesting, and what I'm fearing for there to not so rad dads is that the Challenger incident in 86, I believe, is what we're about to see. I think that Tracy has become a spectacle. She has missed multiple sims. They've stated this explicitly, but she has become part of the propaganda machine, right? Because what we're exploring in season 2 is that the path to Mars is not through NASA, it's through Washington. So this is kind of what I think this is Axel. Correct me if I'm wrong there, you rad dads. But I think what you're getting at is, what do I think of this? I think that we have a situation in which we have a publicity stunt per se. Now, she's not an unskilled person, but she clearly has alcoholism issues, alcohol issues. She's clearly a little bit of a wreck. Gordo is on the rise up. Everything has been great for Tracy. Everything's been great. I can't help but the fear that this launch is going to be a challenger. And I know we kind of did this back in season 1, right? Where there was an explosion, but that was the fire, I believe, in which they were depicting, which happens in one of the earlier flights. I believe that we might have a situation, because the Challenger incident, for you guys that don't know, was an incident in which we were sending a teacher up into space, and we trained the first female teacher to go up there, and she was going to teach lessons, and this was in Florida. They sent her up, and they sent her up because she had lesson plans, and they did this in inadequate weather. I believe it came down to an O-ring, actually, that was just like, it was 10 degrees too cold, and it expanded, or didn't expand. I'm not a fucking rocket scientist, but the point is, Axel is pointing to a very valid point, that Tracy is kind of embodying this character now that is purely there for, again, exploitative, right? Issues, reasons, motivations, as well as, not the best intentions. She is a mouthpiece. She is a figurehead. She is something that they want to put on a poster. But now she's in a spaceship. This might have nothing to do with her. And Gordo's route, her husband, who has fallen into alcoholism and a bit of psychiatric trauma from his time on the mission with Ed and Danielle, is on. I feel that it's gonna take a bit of a disaster, along with Ed's recent. I'm trying to stay away from spoilers. But I think that we have a husband and wife that are now divorced. One is a celebrity, one's on the downtick, and one might blow up. And it reaches right into our real timeline with the Challenger. It's word soup coming out of my mouth, I know it. But yeah, that's my answer. What I think about that is it's very relevant, Axel. I think it's very appropriate that she is a figurehead, right? And she is a promotion piece. She is there for almost propaganda reasons. I mean, any other country, we'd call it propaganda, right? That's what we called all the Russian female cosmonauts. Why wouldn't we call that here, especially with her lackluster approach in the recent launching of it? So I think that there's going to be a disaster, and if I were to bet money, I would bet on her not living through season 2. Unfortunately, I love her as a character though, and I really loved her the parallel lives of her and Ed's wife. So let's see. But the show sounds very Jamestown reference has an unfortunate uncomfortable link. Oh, absolutely. So we got the South London reseller. Yeah. And he's not just trying to take land out of Massachusetts. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously Jamestown didn't end well. In Gordo's speeches, we were the Pilgrims, the Russians were the Indians. But in hindsight, the Indians were the ones in the right, and the Pilgrims, obviously, even though we come from them and it's not ideal, but it is what it is. It's all this fractured idealism and so forth. But I find that these series to be incredibly deep, and I find it on a base storytelling level, and that's what I'm actually educated in. For this series to jump in and out of inner family dimensions, meaning the actual issues that a family character-driven story would deal with Ed and his family, and Gordo in his personal situation, meaning like the interpersonal, into the extract, right? Like the external, like actual external, not essential, external issues of the events, meaning there's things that happen to people that are out of their agency. You have external events, but events aren't story. Story is about the people that those events happen to. So I think there's a very weird balance that I really love in this show, because I think it's kind of like they roll the dice with it. I feel like sometimes I watched an episode, I had to go back and rewatch like episode 6 or 7 last season. Quote me on it, but there's one episode where there's a time jump out of nowhere where I'm like, what the fuck just happened? But at the same time, it's that interpersonal with that external, not existential, external aspect of storytelling with these shuttle launches. So you have Tracy, for instance, you have her, a external event is happening to her, right? She is launching up in the shuttle, but the interpersonal and the internal is her celebrity, the route in which she's taken. And Gordo has that as well. So how does the external affect the internal? Like we see this with Ed's stepdaughter, right? Like a lot of people are saying, what the hell? I see this all the time in the comments of great videos by good content creators, which I will link, actually. I have no problem doing it. They do a great job covering this series, and there's not a lot of people that do. And I see them saying, I'm not so sure about this, like, this kid that they adopted, right? But I kind of look at it like, this is us looking from the outside in, and that's how you look at other people's lives. We're jumping back in, and we're seeing what Ed's up to, right? He's got this adopted daughter now. Now we got to learn about her. We might not get an explanation. We're not going to get what happened in between their son's death, right? Exactly, verbatim. We're not going to get that. Maybe that's helpful, because we don't get that in real life either. We jump in and out of each other's lives constantly. And I think a story that can really handle that properly and delegate it, like actually like delegate these actual emotions properly, externally and internally, it is a masterpiece. And yeah, they've had their missteps. I actually think season 1 was really good. I see a lot of people saying season 2 is so much better. I don't know. I was pretty damn happy with season 1, and season 2 is just as good right now. I'm still waiting for season 2 to live up to season 1, but I love it. I think all the character motivations are there. I think the internal and external motivations, meaning wants, what you want in life and what you need in life, are there. And I'm loving it. And I'm excited about TV again to get on here and ramble with you guys. So, I mean, like, close it up in a minute, but I don't know. I'm loving the hell out of it, and it's a lot of fun, and I like to live in a world in which this leads to Matt Damon going up to Mars and having the Martian. Then we have the Expanse, and that's my fucking lore. That's my canon right there for life, and I wish it was that. And it also does bring up some of these sociological and philosophical aspects, like, hey, sometimes it takes like a whole bunch of fucking shilling, a whole bunch of gimmicks and sticks. We'll put a woman up there. Oh, they put a woman. We'll put a woman of color up there. Like, like, that's fucked up. I agree. But at the same time, it shows that people are people, and people can do good things of all colors, all races, blah, 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 all genders. Doesn't matter. And sometimes you don't get to that goal line by the best intention. Just like you don't always win with good intentions. And I think this series is really brilliantly displaying it. I'm a little bit sappy, and it is what it is. So let's see, should watch the 100. Yeah, it's got Zach in it. Is he full nude in that? That guy is always, he played Charles Vane in Black Sails, which is, again, if I'm going to recommend anything as we're leaving here, Black Sails, watch it. It's fucking fantastic. If you put it up against Game of Thrones, dare I say, first 3 seasons, it's 4 seasons altogether, but first 3 seasons hold up better than the whole series as a whole, Game of Thrones. Also, not only just for All Mankind, but you could take a look at Better Call Saul. You could take a look at The Expanse if you haven't, obviously. But there's also some good series going on that are being produced when we actually are within this COVID lull. Meaning there's still people making films, there's still people making series, and there's still great storytelling happening. And this is an interesting time in filmmaking, because this is the COVID film era, for better or worse. Like I said, film noir was made when they didn't have a lot of money for lighting schemes, so they did it all under one lighting scheme. Now it's like a niche, right? So again, good intentions only lead to good results, and bad intentions don't always lead to bad results. So blah, blah, blah. No, yeah, Black Sails. Yeah, watch it. I'm mad that you haven't seen that. Anybody that hasn't watched Black Sails, that's despicable to me. I will shame you. No, you're a good guy, fandom. Thank you, everybody, though. And we will have the Expanse video. That's actually a video coming out. And let me link, actually. Let me do a good Samaritan thing and go and link a content creator that I have no fiscal interest in. And actually, not that thrilled with some of his other stuff, but want to know what? Credit where credit is due. This guy right here. Copy the link. Good creator. Pete Peepers. You heard it first from me. Fantastic guy. I don't know that. Fantastic content creator for All Mankind. No, very good videos, and he's one of the first people that have been covering this. And to be honest, when I first watched the first episode, I liked it, and I looked it up on YouTube, and he came up on the first search. And why not? Credit where credit is due. Let's do some links as well. Let's do fandom. Do you want yours in there? Put it in there, brother. Let's do Alicia as well. Alicia just had a very good discussion about Applebee's and their high apps. So see about that. WandaVision. AK. Jesus, this, you guys got to get your SEO together. Come on. We got Alicia Kingston, and then we've got Fandom D Saint, as well as Axel Foley in the chat below, which he is part of Daily D. Well, he runs Daily DVR. Very hard to do this, Alicia. All right. Copy. Oh, Peter Griffin, what's going on, pal? Did you get a chance to see Servant on Apple TV yet? No, I did not. What's that about? Let's talk about it really quick before I go. Let's look it up. Let's look it up, Peter Griffin. Servant. 2019. Okay. Let's give it a full screen view. All right. Is this it? A Philadelphia couple is in mourning after an unspeakable tragedy creates a rift in their marriage and opens the door for a mysterious force to enter up. So, oh, is this horror-esque? Oh, it's got a 7.6. I have not seen it. It's got Jason Momoa in it. Let's see. How is he not in the? Hold on. How do they not have him in the top billing? Let's see. Is this the right one? Hold on. Okay. Here. I'm not trusting you on this, bro. Where is it? I'm not seeing Servant on it. Did you lie to me? Oh, see, not Servant. Okay. Thank you. Well, I made dinner just in case. Okay. I got it. Here you go. No, I have not. I'm aware of this actually though. So let's give it a Peter Griffin look, everybody. So far in the dystopian future. Ooh, dystopian future. Why is every future fucking dystopian? The human race has lost its sense of sight. I don't know. I don't really think we're ever looking that much forward. And society has had to find new ways to interact, build, hunt, and to survive. All that is challenged when a set of twins is born with sight. So played by Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger. This is obviously a segue and a connecting piece of supplemental content to Twins, the masterpiece with Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger, in which those fellas going to be more different, right? Yeah, so if you want to see the origins of Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger being twins, C is what that is. That is the origin story. Also, it seems like he's playing a lot of Native American characters lately, and I believe he is South. Yeah, whatever. It works for Hollywood, I guess. We'll work on that too. But yeah, it is what it is. Yeah, I'll take a look at it. I'm more than willing because I got a year free for Apple TV, and For All Mankind seems to be where it's at right now. But yeah. Oh, Twins is so good. Yeah, I had a one of my first like real girlfriends. I had to go like to her house, and her dad lost his ton from cancer, but he took a lot of steroids and he worked out. He made me work out in front of him. He made me watch that film with him, and he kept hitting me during it. I remember I was like 15. Well, isn't that funny? But I don't want to make mouth problems or clear. Also, it's not okay to make people work out in front of you. You know what I mean? Saying, Mr. Cartwright, not that cool. Yeah. Wasn't he yeah, no, it's not that hard for him to find work. No. And he seems like a stand-up guy too. He's had a few interviews where I really liked his posture, his general way of things. So no, it's fantastic. Thank you, Fandom family. Thank you guys for supporting. Thank you for the big super chat at the beginning. That means a lot. Thank you to all my Patreons, and we're gonna roll you guys out. Check out all these people. Check out Alicia. Check out Fandom D Saint. Check out Axel Foley. And check out all the projects I work on besides my channel, which is mostly a lot more than my channel, but we'll do it from there. Love you guys, and we will see you soon.